Welcome to the Top Producer Podcast with Farm CPA Paul Neefer. The Top Producer Podcast challenges farmers to think differently. Farm management, tax issues, policy implications, and more. Gain your competitive advantage on the Top Producer Podcast. The Top Producer Podcast is brought to you by Durastack Trait Technology, the latest innovation from Syngenta. Available for the 2027 season, Durastack Technology features 3 powerful modes of action to outsmart, outmaneuver, and outmatch corn rootworms every move.
Welcome, everyone, to the Top Producer Podcast. This is Paul Neefer, your host, and today we're going to have a conversation with Brandon Hurst from Decla, I think. Is it Decla, Idaho?
Declo, yep.
Declo, Idaho, which is well, I'll let you explain to the audience where Declo is here in a second. So, how are things going?
It's going pretty good. Yeah, we're about midway through harvest right now from all of our different crops, halfway through. So, the crops are looking really good this year. So, if the prices were better, that'd be even better, you know. But no, we're doing good.
I think every farmer this year would start off with things are doing good if the prices were better. You know, I think every farmer has that as top of mind. But as we typically do, we always like to start off with your background. So I'll let you fill us in on again where Declo is. You know, a lot of people probably, just like I grew up in Dixie, Washington, and there's maybe less than 0.5% of the population in America has any clue where Dixie, Washington is, but I'll let you fill in the audience and then your background and so on.
Yeah. So I'm a 4th generation farmer in Declo, Idaho. Declo is like, I would say maybe the most central and most south you can get in Declo or in Idaho. So we're right in between Pocatello and Twin Falls on the Snake River Plain. We have, it's a town of 359 people.
Okay.
Farming community. I love it. It's high desert, but we are 100% irrigated on our farm. It'd be my great grandfather came here from Montana.
Oh, okay.
In 1932. So like right during the Depression, and he bought, if I remember right, it was 80 acres, and I think he bought it for, I hope I don't get this wrong, I think it was $1,800.
Yeah.
And he couldn't make his first payment.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're still on that farm, and we've grown to between my dad and I about 1,800 acres now that we're farming, and things have been going good there.
Did you go to college?
I did. Yeah, I guess I did. I kind of went. I went to BYU, Idaho, which is up in Rexburg.
Yeah.
I went there for, who was it? Their semesters are weird. Are they trimesters? Anyways, I went there for 3 semesters.
Okay.
And I was like, school's just not for me. I took the ag business classes there, and I really enjoyed those, but it's the other stuff that college makes you do that I'm like, nah, I'm wasting my time and my money. So I got married and then moved back home. As like, let's just start farming, working for dad full time.
Okay.
And
now when you say irrigation, in the Pacific Northwest, my cousins actually are still farmers up in the Columbia Basin, and we used to go visit them when I was a kid. And back then everything was real irrigation, and I was trying to do the siphon tube, and I was horrible at it. I could never get it started. But I'm guessing in your neck of the woods, it's probably more pivots, or is there still a fair amount of real irrigation, or what's the mix?
So yeah, all of our irrigation is coming off of the Snake River through canal system. And on the north side of the river, it's all gravity fed.
Okay.
But on the south side of the river where I'm at, it is all through pump stations. So our canal system, I believe, is pumped on 3 different stations, 30 feet each, into multiple canals. And at the highest, we're 90 feet above the river. And so that canal system was built in the early 1900s.
Okay.
And it was built for flood irrigation.
Yep.
Well, since then, everyone has retrofitted the flood irrigation system into pressurized systems. And so it works really well, surprisingly, for as old as it is. And there's a lot of pivot irrigation, but because of the canal system, we have a lot of fields that it's hard to find a square field or a circle field. Everything has odd point rows. And so on our farm in particular, we have a lot of wheel line irrigation, which as I'm talking to people, that is kind of a really odd thing. That's, I feel like, probably very what's the right word, very niche to this area and not much outside. So our farm actually has about 80 wheel lines on it.
Oh man, that sounds like a pain.
Yeah. And then but we also have like 26 pivots, but only two of those, out of those 26 pivots, only two of them make a full circle.
Oh, so they'll whatever the contour of the field, it might be a 3/4, it might be a half, it might be a quarter. And so yeah, so you probably, like you said, if make a full circle, that'd be like a 130-acre field or about. Do you have any square pivots where they have the end boom, or is it all just circles?
So we have one that has a swing arm.
Okay.
Yeah, one that has a swing arm, but all the others are just regular pivots. They just don't make a full circle. They're usually a half or quarter.
I've talked to some people about the squares, and they sound great in theory, but they tend to have more issues with them. Do you find that to be true, or has yours been working pretty good?
Yeah, it definitely has more gremlins, even though it's a brand new pivot, and it's run off GPS, and that swing arms, turning around with GPS coordinates and all that, and it still has some gremlins here and there. It's not too bad compared to what I've heard stories about older styles, but
it's still like you say, and we're getting close to Halloween, so it does have gremlins. So well, again, I'm from Washington State, and I think second to California, we grow the most crops in the country, but Idaho's not too far behind. So why don't you share for the audience what crops you grow? And when you say you're halfway through harvest, let's go through when your harvest is for each of those crops typically happens.
Yeah. So we on our farm, we'll grow wheat, potatoes, sugar beets. We'll dabble in some hay. We used to own a dairy, and so we still have all the hay and equipment. We'll do some custom hay for guys. We do silage corn for a neighboring dairy. Dairy is a big industry in our area. And we'll do some like forage crops for the dairies. So like this year we did some oats for chopping. And then on the side, I do a smaller dill with pumpkins and then also sunflowers. So we have a decent variety of crops here.
Okay. Now, pumpkins, I'm guessing that you're right in the middle of harvest of those, or has that all been done?
Yeah, so I'm right in the middle of those. So the pumpkins is kind of I only do a couple acres, about 8 acres. I got into some Walmart stuff, working with supermarkets, and that's stressful. That's a lot of work, and your quality's just got to be right there with it. And so kind of a good thing that we don't do that anymore, but I still deliver to a couple local nurseries. I'll bin up the pumpkins. And then once my contracts with the local nurseries are filled, I will do a little fundraiser called Pumpkins for Pumpkins. So in 2020, well, let's go back a little bit. So I got married in 2015, and my wife and I in 2018, we're trying to have kids. Okay. And lots of people deal with infertility issues, and we were one of those people. And so we were going to different infertility clinics, and finally it came to the point where we're like, okay, we're going to have to do IVF, in vitro fertilization. And that is a more or less an elective from insurance, right? So that's pretty close to $25,000 out of pocket. And so I was just kind of, we were young, poor, trying to do anything we could to save up some money. And so in 2019, I got the deal with Walmart and Eagle Eye Produce, and I was able to, it was crazy, you know, to the penny almost, that we got the money to pay for IVF through Pumpkin Field.
Okay.
And so we went into Boise to the Idaho Center for Reproductive Medicine, and we did our first round of IVF. And pretty common, it didn't work the first time. You know, the stats aren't real great on success on that, but we were, you know, prepared to do it again. In 2020, we were getting ready to do the second round, and my wife passed away. And this was right peak COVID. It wasn't COVID that caused that, but the autopsy came back as acute pneumonia. So kind of a rough time, but we got through it. And so I've since been remarried, and my wife now, she's just super supportive. She grew up on a farm here pretty close, and now with the pumpkins, when my contracts are filled, we do a thing called Pumpkins for Pumpkins, where half of the cost of the pumpkin goes to an IVF fund to help other families. And last summer, we were actually able to donate $14,000 to a couple who were on their, they just got done with their second try at IVF. So the third try, their funds were expended, and they're like, all right, we're just going to have to wait for a while. They got the phone call saying, hey, you just won yourself $14,000. And they said, sign us up right now, get us in right now. They just had a baby this summer. So
good.
Super exciting.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, long story about the pumpkins, but yeah.
But no, that's the human interest of it. I mean, even I have 4 boys, but my wife and I, we sort of went through a little bit of the same. Now, we didn't have to go all the way to IVF, but we ended up with what I call the best birth control, because my wife had to take a pill to get pregnant. So, but that 3 years or 4 years of figuring out what the issues were, and believe me, that's not really a lot of fun either. So no, well, so now as far as harvest time, I think you're done with the potatoes, right? The potatoes have been done. Now, is your potatoes, is that fresh? Is it going to a processor? I mean, just because most of the audience, I think, is probably in the Midwest, and, corn and soybeans, and that's pretty straightforward. These crops are not necessarily straightforward. So what do you do with your potatoes as far as the market?
Yeah, so we are part of a co-op, Sun Valley Potatoes. That's a fresh market. This year, normally so there's lots of varieties of potatoes, and I made a video on social media about this, and I was surprised by the comments I got back from it. But we grew Norcotas, russet Norcotas, for the first time ever this year, and that is typically what you're going to see in a grocery store, because it is the perfect little baker potato that everyone loves to see. Smooth, just beautiful. To me, I think they taste like trash.
Well, they have no taste. Let's be honest.
Yes.
You got to put enough butter and sour cream on them to get the taste.
Yeah. So, and if you can get the butter and sour cream to mix in, because they're just not a fluffy potato, then good for you. But we grow some of those for fresh market, and that's kind of just to diversify our marketing there. And then the majority of our potatoes are russet Burbanks, which are used for French fries, most of the time for McDonald's French fries, and that's through McCain Foods.
Yeah.
And so those are, I guess, process grade potatoes, which tends to be a little better and more stable market.
Okay. And McCain is based in far eastern Canada. I mean, they got plants all over the world, but they are a Canadian company, but they have plants all over the United States. So So now, potato harvest is done. Pumpkins you're in the middle of. Now you also have sugar beets. So when and how do you market those sugar beets?
Yeah, so sugar beets is with a co-op as well. So it's the Amalgamated Sugar, which is based here in Paul, Idaho. But they have a couple different plants. They've got Paul, Twin Falls, Nampa, and then I don't remember if is it NISA, Oregon is still running or not? I'm
I
not
don't
for
think
sure.
NISA is. I think it's just, I think you named the three, Paul, Twin Falls, and Napa. And again, I've even taken a selfie in front of the sign at Paul, Idaho. So that,
Yeah.
I do like the fact there is a Paul, Idaho. So,
Yeah.
so that's the cooperative.
Yep. And so harvest is actually going right now. A lot of our neighbors are digging beets. We don't have a whole lot of acres, and so we like to wait. In between potatoes and beets, we like to get some more groundwork done, some winter wheat planted, try to, tie things up a little better while the weather's good, and then we'll go into a beet harvest probably either tomorrow, or we're going to wait till Monday. And that'll take us about 2.5 weeks to dig those.
And what would be your typical yield on sugar beets?
Roughly the past couple of years, our average is about 38 ton per acre.
Of course, the key is it isn't necessarily the tonnage, it's the amount of sugar you get out of the sugar beets. I mean,
Correct.
because it can be now to produce the best sugar, do you want cool summers, hot summers? What creates that higher amount of sugar in the sugar beet?
I wish I knew the exact answer.
And maybe there is not one exact answer, because
I don't feel like there is, because there's so many varieties out there that perform so differently. Some of them are higher yielding on the tonnage, but lower on the sugar, and vice versa. And then a lot of it has to do with your nutrient program. So I know my dad has always complained, I can hit the sugar, but I can't hit the tonnage that everyone else claims they're getting. And how the coffee shop talk can be. I feel like after harvest, the coffee shop is a lot like an auction. The first person to say their yield actually loses, because
you want to be the last. You want to be the last. So
yeah. So
well, speaking of yield, you grow winter wheat. Is that hard red? Is it soft white? Or what type of winter wheat do you grow?
mostly soft white.
Soft
So we
white.
mostly do
Okay.
soft white, and then we dabble in some hard white.
Okay. So I'm going to ask what would be your yield, typical yield? And again, this is the coffee shop, but what would be the typical yield on soft white?
Our average for the past 5 years or so has been 135 to 140.
Okay. And
right in that range.
And of course that's irrigated. And
Yes.
then,
Yep.
now my wheat in southeastern Washington near Walla Walla, that would be my average, but it would be non-irrigated, but we just happen to have, good rain and good soils, and we don't have to work as hard. So
yeah, lucky you.
Yeah. We even heard last year. Now, again, I don't know if this is a coffee shop, but I don't think it was. We heard yields as high as 180. So
yeah, this year we didn't get that high. Last year I had one field. Unfortunately, it was only 21 acres, but that field went 178.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I can still remember as a kid, I was, I think, 6 years old. We had a 5-acre field to 105 bushels to the acre. So, that's 60 years ago. So that was a pretty good yield. So
yeah.
Well, good. So it sounds like you farm with your dad, but what is your role at the farm right now? Or just expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. So I feel like the role is, maybe, is complicated a good way to say it? Maybe every farm kid will say that when they come back to the farm full time. Like, sometimes you don't really know what your position is. Some days you're just the hired guy and the grunt. Other days you're helping make managing decisions, whether it's irrigation or crop rotation or whatever. So it's kind of broad. It feels like my role is everything. But and then to mix it all together and make things even more complicated, my dad and I are not partners in any way, shape, or form. We have separate contracts. My dad told me early on when I came back to the farm in 2015, he said, I have nothing to give you, so go find it.
Okay.
Which at first was very frustrating. It's like, wait, but the neighbor, they look like they're giving their kid this, or they're, whatever. And comparison is not good. Right.
Yeah.
So now I'm in a position where I'm very thankful that my dad did that.
Yeah.
So our setup is I earn a salary from him because I still work for him, and I manage a lot of things, day-to-day things that are going on with his farm. But then I've also been able to go find ground myself to rent and to build up contracts, relationships, and opportunities there. And then I also rent and lease equipment from him to run my operation, which I feel like is probably a fairly typical setup.
Yep.
Now that I talk to a lot more people, but it's just very, farm dependent. Every farm's different.
Okay. And, I think especially with how the FSA rules are, and of course they're changing a little bit, potentially. I mean, we're waiting for some guidance that I think you are correct. A lot of times it does make sense to have separate operations with dad and son, or dad and daughter, mom and daughter, whatever it might be. Now, at some point, if you grow large enough, maybe synergy, it makes sense to maybe combine the equipment into one entity, or have the trucking in an entity. But I still think there is some benefit to having separate operations, and I think anytime you have skin in the game, which obviously you did, I think you appreciate it more later on. So
Yes, yeah,
that,
and then as I've talked to and uh, try to be as nice about this as possible, I guess. I hope this doesn't come off too bad, but I've talked to neighbors who were just strictly employees on their farm, and they didn't know what it cost per acre to grow potatoes, wheat, anything really. They didn't know what the cost were. And so a big benefit in my operation is that I understand the cost per acre. And I just listened to your podcast with Jace Young.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
that his name? Yeah.
yep.
And a lot of the things he was talking about, I'm like, wow, maybe I have a little bit of an upper hand on understanding of what's actually happening on the operation because of what I felt like was a bad, idea at first, but
Turned out to
ended up,
be a good one. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Now, as far as cost of production as far as your highest cost, now obviously probably pumpkins might be the highest, but as far as your production ag, would it be potatoes then sugar beets, or is it the opposite?
Yeah, so it's definitely potatoes. That is, yeah, high input crop.
You got the seed, you got how many times you have to do fungicide and all that stuff. So
Yep. Yep.
so maybe for the audience, yeah, because in the Midwest, you plant the corn, you might side dress, you might apply, you might spray it once or twice, maybe at the most, probably twice, maybe three times. But in the potatoes, just go through that cycle a little bit for the farmers on here, just for them to understand what's involved.
Yeah. So potatoes, to me, I feel like potatoes always start 2 months ago.
Okay.
We are starting with our crop rotation or planning, what field. On our farm, we like to have a 7-year rotation on potatoes at least. We've gotten some good deals with neighbors where we're renting some ground from guys who don't grow potatoes on a 1-year lease, and we rotate throughout their farm. And a lot of that stuff is 20-year plus, which really helps with disease control and yield and just quality in general. We've had some good luck with neighbors that are, good stuff there. But potatoes, I feel like always start right after wheat harvest is done. We want to follow wheat typically. We can follow corn, but we want to usually follow a wheat crop just because the soil tilt. And then we never follow sugar beets just because we're too late in the year to really get the soil structure set up. But potatoes grow best in soft soil.
Yeah.
And so we will come through, we'll do tillage on our wheat. We'll try to get that volunteer wheat coming up. We'll water it back up, and then we'll go through and hit with deep tillage after that. And then we do a fumigant. We like to do a fumigant, and I know there's other natural ways to do a fumigant, but we haven't seen success with that. Watching neighbors and things like that with some mustard and stuff. So we'll do a KPAM or VAPAM fumigant. And so we just barely finished with that. We custom hire that out, and that's done with just like a John Deere chisel plow type machine.
Okay.
And then that has to sit in the ground for, I want to say it's 2 weeks is to get your best results. And then we'll come back in here in a couple of weeks and we'll actually hill up our beds for potatoes.
Yeah. So you make that sort of you have the
Yep.
deep row and then you have the bed that comes up. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And we're on 36-inch row spacing.
Okay.
And then so we let that sit over winter. And I've always been told, and I see it as well, but we want the clods, the dirt clods, and everything like that to be sitting out, exposed in the winter, and so that the moisture can get in, the freezing and thawing action can actually break those clods up and loosen up the soil and just make it just as mellow as possible. Okay. And then we come in and plant in the spring, usually about the 1st of May, we'll plant. And then about 2 to 3 weeks after planting, we'll come in and we'll cultivate and we'll dammer dike. So dammer diking, I feel like, is a very Northwest term too, where behind the cultivator shank is a paddle that's rolling through the row and is creating pockets in the row so that we can hold and retain our moisture. Also helps with wind erosion, because with pivot irrigation or irrigation in general, the end of a pivot can actually put down a lot of water all at once. And if you don't have those, you will tend to blow rows out and the water will run. And especially if there's any slope to the field at all. So with that dammer diking, we also put a couple of years ago, my little brother built the dammer diker bar in the high school ag shop. Okay. And then I helped him put a spray bar behind it. So we built a spray bar so that we can apply our pre-emergent herbicides on to our potatoes right before they're poking out of the ground. And we do that all in one pass. And then from there, it's just water. And then let's see, probably about the end of June, 1st of July, now we're talking about doing sprays for fungicides. And then we get onto a program where we are fertilizing every 10 days. And that's all done with an airplane. We don't want to touch the ground again after cultivation.
Oh, so you're not running it through the pivot. You're actually...
No. If the system's set up well with a pivot, we will occasionally. But because we get a lot of wind here.
So it's just going to spray it around. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And we get wind skips. And then when we're on wheel line fields, especially wheel line fields, we'll get wind skips. Yeah. Because the wheel line will sit there for 12 hours. At the beginning of the year, we'll do 8-hour sets. But yeah, the wheel line will sit there for 12 hours and the wind can be blowing 30 miles an hour all day long. And then you move the wheel line and the wind blows the other direction. Yeah, so you get a 50-foot skip, or you get doubled up in places. And so we like to use the airplane so they can just hit it in one shot and then we'll water that in.
Okay. So, and then you got harvest. So yeah.
And then you got harvest that starts the 1st to middle of September.
Okay, so just for those Midwest people that raise corn and soybeans, look how easy you have. I mean, as far as from a management standpoint. So yeah. Now, how many inches of water do you typically want to put on potatoes?
On a typical year, we're right around 36 inches of water.
Okay. Yep. Okay. And you have pretty good water there. I mean, it's maybe, in my opinion, maybe not as good as or consistent as the Columbia Basin, but
correct.
Yeah, the Snake's pretty close. I mean, it's still pretty good water.
We have really good rights where we're at. In fact, Minidoka, the north side of the river, that was the original canal project for our area. And so everything from our area upstream is actually considered the Minidoka project. And so we heard about, guys that were struggling in Eastern Idaho with their water rights and things like that. And as a joke, I always say, because they don't like our water rights down here and they want to have us share with them sometimes. And as a joke, I always say, well, whose name's on the dam? Yeah, because it always says Minidoka project on all the dams upstream from us. So anyways, but yeah, so we have actually really good water rights and we are allotted 4 acre-feet per year.
That is good. That is good. So, well, Brandon, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break for a sponsored message and then we'll come back. We'll talk about a few other things.
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Top Producer Podcast. I'm Paul Neiffer, your host, and we're going to rejoin our conversation with Brandon Hurst from I'm going to call it South Central Idaho. Is that a accurate term? I mean, I know it's Declo, but I think South Central Idaho might be a little easier. I know, Brandon, that you have a social media presence. You actually have gotten involved with like an irrigation company. Why don't you sort of go through how or why you decided to do that, and just what's going on with that?
Yeah. So social media is kind of I've watched Millennial Farmer, I've watched Bell's Hay, all about farming, different places on social media, and I always thought that's pretty cool. I enjoy watching farming from other areas and seeing different perspectives and how they farm. And I always thought, well, there's no way I could do that. And my wife was actually the one who was very supportive. And once I started doing those pumpkins, I needed an outlet, a way to show, hey, I'm selling these to the public. And so I started doing some social media. And then my wife's like, hey, you're doing pretty good. Why don't you just keep pushing it and keep. I was like, okay, why not? What do I have to lose? Right. And so I've been getting more and more consistent, especially on Instagram and Facebook. We're trying YouTube. YouTube is hard. It takes a lot of work with editing, and hats off to anyone that can do YouTube and farm full time. And we're trying that. And as it's grown and I've seen, success in it in a way, it's been fun to market myself as a farm, but then also show non-farmers and other farms around the country how we farm here in Southern Idaho, because I feel like we're very different from your typical farmer in the US.
Yes.
And so with that, I see a lot of advertisements on social media, and it's all farming focused because the algorithm, like, they know what you want, right?
Yeah.
And so I saw this ad for Comet Irrigation, and I was putting up some pivots on a farm that I just bought, and I thought, competition's good for me. So I'm going to reach out to these guys and see what's going on. So I contact my local sprinkler dealer, and they're like, man, we don't really deal with them a whole lot. It's kind of a little bit newer in this area. Here's the area rep. Why don't you call him, ask him some questions? So I called him. He happened to live just 15, 20 miles away from me. He's like, oh man, I know Declo really well. I just live in Oakley here. And yeah, let's get together. I'll bring out a demo. Like, just super good guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hey man, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to do it anyways. I have a little bit of a social media presence. Is there anything we could do here? Because I found you guys on social media. Could we collaborate on something? If not, I get it. And Weston is his name. Weston came out. He's like, heck yeah, man, let's push it. Let's see what we can do with this. I was like, oh, really? Like, I didn't expect
now you got to do
answer.
some work.
Yeah. Now we might have like something that really happening here. And it's been a really, really, really cool experience. And I feel like at first I felt bad. I felt like I'm like selling out, or what's the right term for it? Like I'm trying to sell myself, right? But then at the end of the day, I'm like, well, that was the whole goal of social media, is to try to find new markets and new ways to do things, especially in the economy that we have with farming right now. And so we've created a great relationship there with Comet, and their product is really, really good. I don't want to say superior, because I feel like anyone that can sell in the market right now is competitive. That's just how it is, so between Senator and Nelson and Comet, I feel like they're all right there. They're all top tier. But the thing that really sells me is customer support and service. That is, I'm a sucker for that.
Now, you mentioned Nelson, which is from Walla Walla area where I grew up. I mean, so are they primarily doing the nozzles, or what is the product that Comet Irrigation does?
Yeah, so their big focus is pivot irrigation. So they're doing the regulator on the pivot, and then they're doing the nozzle and they call it a twister, which is a lot like an IWAB, or what's Nelson call theirs? Anyways, so it's a randomized droplet, a lot like rainwater. I think that I will say their regulator is top tier. It is superior. The sprinkler is very similar to the others. And I mean, there's only so many ways you can reinvent a sprinkler, right?
Yeah.
But I will say they are a smaller company, which I enjoy because I feel like they can have a little more precise focus on what they're doing. And they've actually come out with some new technology that is just mind-blowing to me. They have this new one called the Wave, which is, it uses a venturi and creates vacuum and has this movement with a magnet. I don't even know how to explain it really, but it's got a lot of science in it, right? A lot of thought went into it, where it's got mechanical parts, but it's using the water pressure and air pressure and things like that to move. And so it creates a lot of the twister motion and randomized droplet on the end of the pivot, which is, it's just all about it. Everything about it's just really neat. So,
and where are they based out of?
Austria. They're based out of Austria.
Well,
yep.
I was in Austria a few years ago with my son. So
I got told that I could come visit, and I would love to go see that area. It's beautiful over there.
Oh yeah. Austria, southern Germany, Switzerland. It's as pretty as anything we have here in the U.S. So, well, good. Now, as far as social media, if somebody wanted to find Brandon on social media, where would they go?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook, Instagram, trying YouTube, TikTok. I've kind of just gone away from, but I'm under Hurst Brand Farms on all of them.
Okay. And I know, and that's your website, and that Hurst Brand Farms, if I remember looking at it. So, well, good. I always like to end our conversations with 3 or 4 key questions. And of course, I've teed you up for this, but first, now I'm guessing an answer, but maybe not. But who is your mentor in your farming process so far?
Obviously, my dad is my mentor. But I'm a very, I feel like, social person, and I'm not afraid to ask questions. So I ask the neighbors all the time, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Or, hey, I noticed you were doing this. Why are you doing that? I feel like it's good to have an open mind and look at the neighbors and ask them and have a good relationship with everybody around you, because, I don't think there's any one way to farm. And so I try to take as much information as possible in and then see what's going to work for our farm best.
Okay. Well, good. Do you have, obviously being a farmer and being on social media, do you have any time for hobbies?
The deeper I get into farming, no. Obviously in Idaho, thank goodness, we have some winter time. And I get some time off. We do a lot of shop work in the winter, but when I do get time, I enjoy dirt biking a lot, up in the woods, single track riding. And then in the winter, we'll head down to St. George, which is about a 7-hour drive for us. And we'll do some riding in the desert and just hanging out.
I used to ride dirt bikes as a kid. Luckily, as far as I know, I didn't have any broken bones, but believe me, I had a few crashes. So if you ride dirt bikes, it's not if, it's when you're going to crash. So
and we actually use dirt bikes on the farm every day with irrigation. A lot of guys will use 4-wheelers. We prefer a dirt bike because you can ride down the row and not damage the crop, right? And if it gets stuck, you can usually pull a dirt bike out versus a 4-wheeler having to go get another one or a pickup or something like that. So
I remember we had harvest, and back then we did more tillage, so we typically would have some ditches in the field. And my brother and I, the field had just been harvested, and we are on a little Honda 100s, and we're racing through the field. I mean, we're probably doing 40 miles an hour, and suddenly I hit one of those ditches right at, sort of like this. That front tire hit that ditch. It basically stopped the bike, flipped the bike up. I go flying down the field, probably slid 150 feet on the stubble, and didn't get hurt, and got back up and raced my brother again. So,
I can relate with that.
Yeah. My favorite saying, when I talk to especially non-farmers, I go, cats have 9 lives, farm boys have 99. I've used about 98 of them. So, is there anything that keeps you up at night?
Oh man. Aside from my 3 kids, yes. For me, it's always the future. It's always the future. And maybe I should, try to work on this, right? And worry about now. Everyone says live in the now, but it's always like, okay, so if this scenario happens, how's that going to affect me in a couple of years? I'm always thinking about that. And ever since I was little, that was the case. I remember waking up in the middle of the night wondering, how am I going to make a living for my family? And I was probably 10 or 11 years old when that happened. And so, the future and what ifs always keep me up.
Well, good. I think that's true of all, whether it's farmers or not. I mean, you are wanting to know, what is the future like and how are we going to get there and so on. And then finally, what's your definition of success in farming?
It's changed over the years. My current definition of success is if you're farming in 2025, you are successful. If you're staying afloat, if you're not going under, if you're just breaking even, it doesn't matter if you have 5 acres, if you have 50,000 acres, if you are able to farm, you are successful.
Yeah. There's a lot of truth to that. So anything else, Brendan, you'd like to add before we sign off?
No, just eat more potatoes.
Eat more McDonald's French fries. So, I'm definitely keeping you afloat based on my consumption of French fries. So,
well, good. I appreciate that.
Well, good. Thanks a lot, Brandon. Again, this is the Top Producer Podcast, and this is Paul Neef, your host, signing off.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon for another new episode of the Top Producer Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe, and remember, all episodes are available on Farm Journal TV and anywhere podcasts are found.